When I first saw this device on a patient at a conference in Germany, I thought I have to have this in this clinic. And we tracked down the company, and after a bit of a convoluted process, we managed to find out that a company called Tuan were distributing it in the UK. And we had made contact also with the Bionic Power, the company that had invented it. Tuan I knew, which was fantastic, a great company, and we have worked closely with them before. So it was really exciting to be able to work with them again on this project. And Bionic Power were really open and forthcoming, and we got to speak to some of the designers and the engineers who are so knowledgeable about this device. It's unbelievable. So we had some really close working relationships with them. So the Agilik is a smart orthosis. It's got an intelligent knee joint that gives assistance during gait and power to the knee. It's cutting edge technology. It was developed for the Canadian military, so it's very robust. And it's then been brought into the healthcare market to help anyone really who has a gait deviation or issues with their gait that can be assisted through the knee joint. So that can also apply to problems around the hip or to the ankle, because if you apply power to the knee, you can assist those two joints as well to a certain extent. So if you think of this as a device that you have to have a degree of active movement to be able to utilize, but then it assists you through that movement by backing you up with power. And so to give some context to that power, it goes up to a weight category of 125 kgs, so that's quite a big person, and it can help lift that person up the stairs. So it will help with leg over leg lifting up the stairs, or even descending the stairs in a controlled manner, so yielding as you come down the stairs. So we have in our clinic taken patients to walk upstairs who haven't walked upstairs since their injury, or by themselves for many years, and that moment is quite a moment to see, really quite emotional. It's hard to put a finger on that specifically, but the things that rule people out, if we start there, would be if you've not able to mobilize at all. So if you've got flaccid paralysis of your legs, then it's going to be very difficult to activate the joint effectively through each step. If you've got severe spasticity, again, it's not going to fight severe spasticity, because you're again not going to be able to use your joint to get fluid movement to activate the joint. If you've got flexion contractures of the knee or the hip beyond 20 degrees, biomechanically, there's not really orthosis in general, and this is just to do with the laws of physics, really, that can really stabilize you effectively through a gait pattern. There are caveats to some of those rules, but that gives a kind of a rough guide. What we're looking for from a patient is someone who can mobilize 10 steps with or without walking aids. So if that's with a K-walker, sticks, sort of larger frame that supports them more with their trunk, that's fine. And we're looking to see, active movement, and so that they can offload the leg, and when they sort of start to swing their leg through, and that they have some active movement around the knee to initiate the knee, so it then backs that movement up with power. The device is going to help. It's really been designed for children with crouch gait. That was its primary focus, to try and help children with crouch gait, which at LOC we do really well because of our OSCA treatment and our understanding of biomechanics and our work within the gait lab. However, when you start using this device, you sort of realise the scope, because it can help such a huge range of children with their general fluidity of their gait and movement. So some children with cerebral palsy actually have difficulty in taking the next step, either because their knees clash or because they don't have the strength to pick up the leg with their knee flexion to get the leg through. And it can begin to help them with the timing and the fluidity of that step. So that's really exciting, because there hasn't really been a lot out there for those children in the past. Crouch gait, to a certain extent, I think it's treated generally quite poorly when we look outside of LOC, but when we feel we treat crouch gait very well, I still think there's a range of patients it will definitely help. Don't get me wrong, for crouch gait, but I think when you start to look at the general wider population of cerebral palsy, and then go into spina bifida and other conditions, you can see how this device can be helpful. And the other big thing that we're really fascinated in, and perhaps we've got to be careful as clinicians not to get too sort of blinkered, is when we watch a patient walk across a gait lab, we're looking to optimize their gait pattern and really make sure that gait pattern is perfect through that step. But that's not reality. Reality is walking out down the street, walking to school, walking with their friends around a playground, walking across a field. So, and that's where the Agilik can really come into its own, because it can replicate that gait lab step in their normal life. Now, we've all had these patients, we can get them walking perfectly in the lab. And then the moment they walk out the door, it can be very frustrating to see them walk across the car park in their old pattern. And now we're saying this device can actually ensure that pattern is replicated throughout their day, which has huge implications to the efficacy of the treatment. We can ensure that we get good knee extension, we can ensure we get good hip extension. Two things that pretty much, if you get those on every step, are going to go a long way to reducing knee flexion contractures, hip flexion contractures, which are the two of the things which take children off their feet. But also the efficiency of walking. So if a child, we talk to a lot of our parents and they say they're just exhausted at the end of a day, or they're exhausted at the end of a week. And so Agilik has the potential to reduce that, to allow them to walk further, to keep up with their friends, to reduce that fatigue, maybe concentrate better in lessons, maybe be able to have a bit of a weekend because they're not so exhausted. So those types of things are really exciting and show the breadth of what we're looking at here. We're not just looking at a tool to optimize gait. We're looking at a tool to optimize their general walking and make them more efficient as well. And so, long term, we're really going to be measuring, as we always do, range of movement. I think orthopedic outcome measures are very powerful in terms of demonstrating the efficacy of a treatment process. When your child has their CPIP assessment, you'll see the sort of, green, amber and red marks come up. And we're looking to try and keep these all in the green, and not let anything slip into amber and red. So that's the sort of the basic premise of what we're trying to do with something like the Agilik. And you do that because you return their gait pattern to as normal as possible. So if a child is walking out of crouch gait, or not with a hyperextended knee, or with an extended hip, we know the benefits are going to be on the muscular system, because we're going to be stretching those muscles through every step when it's very important to stretch them. So when the hip and knee is extended at late stance, or we're going to be loading the leg correctly in those positions as well. So that could have impacts on femoral anteversion and derotating femurs in the longer term, making sure that in these younger children that they're weight bearing and they're getting enough steps to ensure that the acetabular force correctly around the hip. And I think that's another aspect of Agilik that we haven't really fully understood yet, because it's in its infancy, is we can give the ability of a child to walk correctly in a lab, so they can take 10 steps, 20 steps, but how many steps does it take to make sure that throughout their week, to make sure that we can help them go in an upward trajectory in terms of their rehabilitation? Is it 100? Is it 1,000? Is it 10,000? And so Agilik has the potential to really increase that load by a factor. So a child should be able to walk more and walk more well. And that has very exciting implications for their rehabilitation. So at the heart of Agilik is a motor-powered unit and then a battery pack. The motor-powered unit sits on the side of the leg. Given what it's doing, I think it's an amazingly compact design. It was, as I've said before, it's designed for the Canadian military, and originally I think the premise was that you drop your paratrooper out of a helicopter or a plane, they float down onto a mountain, they climb down a mountain, and it was actually working in reverse. So it was powering the batteries in the backpack so that they could get somewhere with full power in the backpack, but also it would reduce the strain on their quads and their knees as they're stepping down. And of course, as these things do happen, it's moved from the military into healthcare. but because of that early invention within, or that early innovation within the military aspect, it became very compact and very robust. And so you've got this motor powered unit and you have a battery pack. Within the motor, you have sensors, and those sensors are constantly feeding back into the system saying where the knee joint is in space. Attached to that, you have a foot sensor as well. And that foot sensor is essentially saying, is the heel, is the midfoot, or is the forefoot in contact with the ground? So those things together all talk to the clever and analytic sort of brain of the smart orthosis to decide where is that leg in the phase of a gait cycle. And so the first thing you're doing as an orthotist is you're breaking down the gait cycle into phases. And so we break that down and then we apply power to that gait cycle. So we might say, right, in early stance, we want to apply 8 Newton meters of force to that leg. And then we kind of break it down in terms of the phases. So we can apply power both to the stance phase when they're standing on the leg, and also then to the swing phase, which has never happened before. So we can then decide to flex the knee and extend the knee during swing phase, which is really exciting to get children moving faster and quicker. Sometimes they can weight bear on the leg fine, but then the action of lifting up the leg, sometimes the shoes are heavy, sometimes the AFOs are heavy, but it can really power them to do this quickly and to do it more efficiently. So the technology, is both the power from the battery and the motor moving the leg, but also the sensors explaining to the motor where that leg is in space and what phase of the gait cycle it's in. So we took delivery of the Agilik in 2025, and the early results are really exciting. We've had children with a complete range of disabilities use it, and generally we've seen very positive outcomes in their walking using the test orthosis. So one of the important factors of Agilik, which is quite unusual, as orthotists, we're used to sort of explaining a condition and then prescribing a device and then scanning it and fitting it without the patient ever really having the ability to test it first. But with Agilik, you can test it. We can put it on, we can walk up and down, we can trial it on stairs, we can trial it on ramps, and we can see the effect that it has there and then. So for patients, for their parents, for their carers, for case managers, you can actually see the benefits. And if you decide that it's not something for you, or if the child doesn't want it, or they don't feel the benefits, or as parents think, well, it's not good enough, that's fine. That's entirely what we want. We want people who really choose that this is going to be something that they see as very important to their child's rehabilitation. And for those children that have gone ahead, we've taken children from severe crouch gait, children who have never extended their knees in walking, to walking with extended knees. We've taken children with walking patterns where the fluidity is halted by their movement condition. So they can't get the stepping movement of gait, and it's very frustrating for parents to see and watch this, and clinicians, because they can do it, but that movement disorder creates the resistance to a nice fluid and reciprocal gait pattern. But Agilik sorts that out, because as soon as that child unweights the leg, it flexes and extends the knee, and as soon as they weight the leg, it then pushes them into extension. So it's almost giving them the prompts that you as a clinician, and if there's physios watching this, you'll understand this, you'll be putting the hands on their knees, and your head will be pushing their legs forward, and you'll be doing this with the hands. This is what Agilik's doing. It's acting like a clinician who understands gait to prompt that child into stepping. So for those children, I think it's a really exciting development, because I genuinely don't think there's anything that has helped resolve their walking patterns as much. Sure, there's been static devices, such as the inner walk, which has helped with movement, but this is a standalone device they can use in their walkers, they can use independently, they can wear it to school, they can wear it in therapy, they can wear it underneath a baggy pair of jogging bottoms. So it gives them the freedom to walk out and about. And we've had videos of children walking down the seafront, along a nice flat promenade with it on, and parents saying they've just done 30 minutes of walking, which they would have done 5 minutes in the past. So it's given children a real sense of independence and freedom as well, and to really sort of get out there and explore and help them with their walking. So this is our first patient who went through with Agilik, and she went through because as we were sort of beginning to train, I was talking to her mum about this new device, and I was saying, look, we've optimized Emma's gait. We can get Emma walking beautifully in clinic. Here we've got her walking barefoot and then with the Agilik. But we can get Emma walking beautifully in a pair of AFOs and shoes. But the moment she walks out the door, she can't maintain that pattern. The moment she is in school, the pattern deteriorates, and the shoes come back in very worn out very quickly because she doesn't pick her feet up during gait, so she drags them along the floor. So then we lose all the biomechanical properties of the shoe very quickly. So the shoes were coming in for repair once every month almost, and it was becoming a bit of a concern in terms of we're not really changing her outcome here. We're fitting her with a nice pair of AFOs. She's comfortable. She's walking a bit better in them. But I don't think we're going to change outcome for her hip and her knee because she's going to stay too flexed. So we introduced Agilik, and immediately we were able to see an extension moment at her knee, and we were able to see an extended hip and knee during her walking. Optimizing her walking became much easier with the Agilik. She walked quicker, she walked more smoothly, and we got that desired gait pattern that we were looking for. It was really interesting. The first time we did it, she had been walking round and round our clinic with it on, and then we'd sort of turned it off, taken it off, and then she kept walking round and round in her existing AFOs. And her mum turned to me and said, "She's walking better, isn't she?" And I said, "I think she is. Yeah, I think we're seeing more genuine hip and knee extension." So there was certainly a carryover in that moment. And so it was very exciting to see this with our first patient. We knew from that moment that we were on the right track with this. And we knew there was certainly a range of patients that, whilst with the best intentions from clinicians and therapists and the physios and the orthotists, you can never really resolve that gait pattern consistently throughout their life, throughout their daily life. And this was going to give us the opportunity to do it. So yeah, I think her example really made us kind of like push on, and really that was the first patient, but it was a great experience for us all. When patients like this stand in their frames, they just sink down at the knee, and that causes the hips to flex as well. And so when they stand in the Agilik, it powers them to stand straight. There's a standing function, and it pushes their knee straight. And so suddenly they are the height they should be, and they're standing up with their shoulders back. And we know, posture is important, and we talk to children about that in all of our other different treatments, whether that's pectus or scoliosis treatments. And it's the same here. These children want to stand tall, they want to stand upright, and so it gives them that power and assistance to do that. I am so excited about where this goes, because it really can offer patients a completely different opportunity in terms of their rehab. I sort of liken it a little bit to when SDR came about in the UK. It opened doors for children. It put them on a different rehab pathway. So whilst, yes, they still have to do a lot of work and they still have to work hard to get to rehab well, their path is a different path. They can reach a different potential. And I think devices like this, and I'm sure in the future there will be more, this is the first, and I'm sure developments will come, that they really will offer children an opportunity to see their world differently. They will not be confined by certain restrictions that are put in front of them. And Agilik will literally allow them to climb stairs, potentially even climb mountains. So I'm very excited by the potential of the device, the notion that smart, intelligent robotics are coming into our industry, and we're being able to fit them into bespoke, very carefully crafted orthoses to give children this opportunity. And, with our adult population as well, again, the notion that you can take a device and it can assist you to go further and do more is very exciting.